What is good, everybody? Welcome to another SB Nation NFL show. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera from Niners Nation. Happy to be joined on this Friday, as always, by RJ Ochoa from Blogging the Boys and Brandon Lee Gowton from Bleeding Green Nation. Going to buck convention here. Going to go to RJ first because your Dallas Cowboys are coming off a win on Thursday Night Football, 27-13 over the Tennessee Titans. How are you feeling this morning, RJ?
I'm doing great, Stats. Great to be with you and Brandon, whose team, my team beat last week as well on Christmas Eve. It's important to get that in there. Cowboys were 13 and a half point favorites last night, Thursday night, on the road on a short week, as Brandon was very happy to see short week Thursday game for the Cowboys for the first time ever on the road.
Coming off Saturday.
They covered and won and kept themselves alive, albeit faintly, in the NFC East and even for the number one seed in the NFC. But I need some help from your 49ers, Stats. So kind of a long morning convincing Dallas Cowboys fans that their team is in fact good. But other than that, it's great to be here and great to see your bright, shining, beautiful faces.
How you feeling, BLG?
TGIF, everyone. Have a little review here on the SB Nation NFL show.
Yeah.
Apple Podcast reviews. I don't know if we've read this one before, but I'll read it again and I'll lump you in here, Stats. It does not say your name, but RJ Ochoa and Brandon Lee Gowton have great chemistry. They are knowledgeable and entertaining. I listen to every football podcast they're on that comes from Andy from Connecticut. Shout out to Andy. And I hope he appreciates you, or they appreciate you, Stats.
Doesn't sound like it, but that's okay. I'm used to it. You know, look, I'm a traffic cop here. I just try to navigate and get a couple words in edgewise between you two. We're going to recap Cowboys Titans before we preview every game. But I just want to remind you that DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today and use code SBNFL for a special offer when you sign up. That is code SBNFL only at DraftKings Sportsbook. All right. Congratulations, Cowboys. You are 12-4. First back-to-back 12-win seasons for the Cowboys since 94-95. And we all remember what happened those years for Dallas. Meanwhile, the Titans have lost 6 straight. They have 22 players on injured reserve, and they lead the NFL using at least 83 different players. Let's start with the positive and the Cowboys. I'm just going to say this. The reaction to the Cowboys on Twitter is not what your reaction should be in real life. Like the Cowboys do something wrong, and on Twitter, it's like the end of the world. It'll be like the second quarter, and people are acting like the sky is falling. It's crazy to me. They're 12-4. I know Dak threw some interceptions. Oh no, let's clutch our pearls. Like they're 12-4. Things are good if you're a Cowboy fan, RJ.
I agree with you, Stats. No NFL team plays a perfect game. A lot of Cowboys fans who are kind of trying to calm the waters have highlighted the way the Chiefs beat the Seahawks last week, the way the Eagles beat the Bears a few weeks ago. I mean, you could pick any game you want, right? Like you can mostly find a game where any great team kind of struggled. Look at the way the Bills beat the Bears last week, right? Josh Allen tried to throw that game away before they ultimately kind of put it out of reach. The first interception, tough break for Dak, right? Hits Peyton Hendershot right in the chest and just bounces off of him. Similar sort of thing to what happened in Jacksonville a few weeks ago. Second one, really terrible. I'm fine if you want to put the fumble on him. But for the most part, Dak Prescott was exactly what the Cowboys needed him to be. And that's kind of been the MO of the last, sort of 2 months has been he's either been incredibly on fire, but then had these handful of moments that have not just been bad, but kind of been the worst possible things. What with, again, the pick six and things like that happening, although, again, not totally his fault. The run game really wasn't there for Dallas. I mean, and Tennessee, for all their warts and all their faults and flaws, kind of a good team against the run. And so Tony Pollard was, I don't know that the Cowboys would classify it as a healthy scratch, but he did not play. And obviously this game meant something to Dallas, but not a ton. And so had a luxury to kind of rest Pollard in preparation for the playoffs. This game meant nothing to the Titans, as I'm sure you both and everybody are aware of. And I mistakenly thought they were punting on the game by starting Josh Dobbs. But it's apparent that they actually believe that he was the better quarterback and we're trying to get him some time and some reps for next week's game against Jacksonville. So all told, again, the Cowboys won. They covered. They jumped out to a 10-0 lead. You're right. It got close and sticky when it was 10-6, but then Dallas stabilized and put the game away.
It was also a 4-point lead early in the fourth quarter. After the Titans had their second touchdown, it was.
That was a really impressive. Not to cut you off, but the Cowboys scored, and they felt like, okay, this is where they're going to kind of put this away. And to Josh Dobbs' credit, kind of with who? Like, who's Josh Dobbs throwing to out there? I mean, everybody hates on Treylon Burks. Went down the field and closed the gap again. And then again, it all just kind of fell apart for them.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it was a meaningless game. We've already probably spent too much time talking about it already, considering that the Titans didn't even really try, in all things considered, to win. And like you said, RJ, the Cowboys didn't have a ton to gain from winning it and resting some players of their own. So kind of a weird situation. The any win is a win. Tune is a little different than the one you were singing once upon a time with me earlier this year, but that's fine. We don't need to get into that. Yeah, whatever. They won. They took care of business. The Titans, though, I mean, a couple weeks ago, it looked inevitable that they were going to win. AFC, it's like everyone was saying that, like foregone conclusion. Oh, they're going to win the AFC South. Like they stink. They're not that great, but they're going to win the division because the division is so bad. I don't know, man. I think the Jags are taking this thing, and it's not like the loss last night changes that because it's all about this finale in Week 18, and the Jags already beat the Titans. I know, so it's maybe not the boldest thing to say, but I just trust them a lot more. And the Malik Willis thing's a little interesting. Like I see a lot of people defending it as, well, okay, it's okay that they set him down. Everyone knew he was going to be a work in progress. I mean, there can be some truth to that, but it's tough to me that you're not even at a point like you can get reps. You can't get because that's valuable to get game action and
in a literally meaningless game. To your point, right? Like this was the time.
What are you gaining out of Josh Dobbs? Like, what are you learning about Josh? Like, how is that providing any value to you in the short term or the long term?
I would also quickly stats just offer it's a different thing if like Josh Dobbs was some undrafted free agent who they signed, right after the draft. They just kind of liked, right? That was kind of like hanging out on their practice squad all season long. But like he joined the team less than 2 weeks ago. So like how can he show up like immediately and be a more preferable option over Malik Willis?
I do not want to see Tennessee in the playoffs. Give me Jacksonville. Jacksonville is at least interesting with Trevor Lawrence. Tennessee is boring.
People saying that.
I know.
No, but wait, you mean like as an eyesore. You're not saying like I'm afraid of them. I don't want to see them in the playoffs. Just to be clear, the definition of what. Okay, just making sure.
Yeah. Like Tennessee, it's just there's nothing. Like you were said, who's he throwing to? There's like no stars that I really want to watch. No, give me Jacksonville. One last thing about the Cowboys before we move on. I know some of these interceptions are not Dak's fault, but they have to stop turning the ball over. Like the turnovers still count, even if it's like, oh, well, that wasn't his fault. Like you have to stop doing that because that is the great neutralizer. That neutralizes talent, home field advantage, momentum, all of that stuff. And in the playoffs, you are not going to be able to have 3 turnovers and beat a team by multiple scores, RJ. They got to get that cleaned up. It's been a problem.
I agree with you. Few quick news and notes. CeeDee Lamb hit 100 catches on the season. He is the 3rd player in Dallas Cowboys franchise history to have at least 100 catches. It was Jason Witten in 2012 and Michael Irvin in 1995. Those are the only other instances. Stats, you mentioned the 12 wins thing. Mike McCarthy now joins Tom Landry, Jimmy Johnson, and Barry Switzer as the only coaches in Cowboys franchise history to have back-to-back seasons with at least 12 wins. The Cowboys, you said it, Brandon, they took care of business, and now sit back, wait, watch, and maybe there's anarchy. Maybe chaos unfolds in the NFC on Sunday afternoon. Either way, it is an interesting thing. I will say that some Cowboys fans asked in our postgame show, Blogging the Boys, should we be rooting for the Eagles, right? Because if the Eagles win, they lock the Cowboys into the 5 seed. And there is something to be said, right? Like, you want the situation taken out of your hands. You don't want this to be something you have to deal with because you're banking on the Eagles losing 2 games if you're a Cowboys fan at this point, which is unlikely. So why, this was a costly game for the Cowboys from an injury standpoint. Tyler Biadasz, their starting center, the early reports are he has a high ankle sprain. You don't know. I mean, like if the Eagles lose this week but win next week, what if you go and play against Washington and something like that happens? You just do not know. I don't know if the Cowboys would rest starters if the Eagles do beat the Saints on Sunday. But it's an interesting, weird kind of wrinkle in time, and it makes things like your fantasy championship really complicated. T's and P's to people who had Derrick Henry or Tony Pollard going this week.
Yeah, that's a shame. All right, we're going to take a quick break and preview all the games. But first, we're going to do our pick 3, excuse me, which is brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today. Use code SBNFL for a special offer when you sign up. That is code SBNFL only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Shout out to everybody except BLG because RJ, you and I got the win last week in our lock of the week. BLG got the loss.
Can you tell me what my lock was, please?
I believe your lock was the Cowboys minus 4.5.
Who's first in the standings still?
Over the Eagles.
Okay,
BLG.
So I locked the Cowboys up at minus 4.5, and I won because the Cowboys won. What was Brandon's lock?
Eagles Plus 4.5.
So
of course.
he locked up the Eagles at plus 4.5 and lost because the Eagles couldn't cover that because they lost to the Dallas Cowboys. Interesting.
And the
Just
Eagles
wanted to understand the fact of it all.
NFC.
Yeah,
I mean, you know,
Thank you, Stats.
enjoys 5th place on the podium, but
BLG is 10-6 on the year, so he does have bragging rights. RJ, you are 7-7-2, and I am 5-9-2.
Not even above 500.
Records to be proud of for sure. Week 17, Brandon, you have honors. Where are you going?
I am going to go with against the Eagles this week. I'm going to take the Saints 6.5. I do think the Eagles win the game, to be clear, but I do think you get a little testy. As of we are recording this at 10:30 on Friday morning, December 30th. We don't know for sure who will be starting for the Eagles at quarterback. Nick Sirianni just had his press conference, but didn't really give any information. Jalen Hurts did practice in a limited capacity on Thursday. I just feel like he's going to have to get a full session in. Maybe he will on Friday. We'll see. I don't know. It seems like a kind of a fluid situation. I think Hurts really wants to be out there. I think the smart thing would to not play him because I think Minshew can be able to help the Eagles beat the Saints there. So yeah, I'm going to take the Saints though to cover just because this is like their season. They're probably not going to make the playoffs, but if they are, like they have to win. I think they're going to give it one last run. And it's not like they're incentivized to like lose and get a better draft pick because their draft pick goes to the Eagles. So yeah, I think they're going to get a good effort from the Saints, and I think the Eagles win, but I think it's a close one. It's like a 4-point game, so I will take the points here.
Has there been a show where you haven't mentioned that the Eagles have the Saints first-round pick next year?
I mean, come on, this time.
This is the one
all,
to do it. Yeah.
It's a bit, but second of all, this is extremely relevant in this case. It literally, like impacts the game.
No one answered the question. That's all I'm saying. All right, RJ, where are you going?
You know, there's a lot of disrespect flying around the NFL these days, and a lot of it is being directed at the Minnesota Vikings. I understand the narrative. I understand the way we've, kind of watched football for the last decade, but spare me this, like, oh, here come the Green Bay Packers. Now the Packers are all of a sudden this force. Kudos to the Packers for beating the Dolphins and for beating the Giants. I mean, or not the Giants, goodness gracious, the Rams on Monday Night Football. But I mean, and look, I'm not gonna lie. Brandon and I talked about this on the NFC's mixtape. If the Packers were to squeak into the playoffs, I would definitely be scared. But I've seen so much more from the Vikings to believe and understand who they are. I don't understand why the Vikings are underdogs against the Packers. And this bothers me greatly because I'm going up against Justin Jefferson in my fantasy championship. What are you doing, Jair Alexander? Why are you poking the bear? Why are you saying that, like, oh, what Justin Jefferson did isn't impressive? Like, that is so stupid to do against the best receiver in the NFL. I will take the Vikings. I will take 3.5 points, and I will hope and pray that the rest of my team is able to survive the onslaught that Justin puts on this week.
This is the game I wanted to take, RJ, so I'm in full agreement with you there. My pick, not that it's worth anything as I'm 5-9-2 on the season, but I'm going to go Seahawks +2 over the Jets. Seattle is at home, number 1. Plus, this is the Geno Smith revenge game, right? He's already checked off wins against a couple of his former teams over, the Giants and the Chargers. I think he's going for the win over the Jets. He lost his starting job when he got socked in the face by IK and Impale. I think this is Geno's turn to punch the Jets in the mouth. He's getting points. He's at home. I don't care if it's Mike White playing for the Jets. I have no confidence in their quarterback situation. It's going to be close, but since I'm getting points, I will take the Seahawks +2 over the Jets. All right, before we get to our break, let's go to our same game parlay. We were horrible last week, gentlemen. We lost every pick. We have not gotten one of these right on the entire season. We have 2 chances left in the regular season. BLG and I are tied atop the standings at 6-10. RJ is 4-12. So you all want to make fun of my locks record. That's fine. You have a worse same game parlay record, RJ.
Okay, Stats. Now who's 5th on the podium? Okay.
Steelers Ravens is the game we're going to. I'm going to go first. I have what I think is the easiest pick of the entire matchup, which is I'm going for a scoreless quarter. It's -130, so Vegas clearly thinks it's going to happen. Let's be honest. Both of these offenses stink. The Ravens were struggling to score points when Lamar was in there. So I think it's inevitable. I think not only are we going to have one scoreless quarter, I think we probably have multiple. So give me that in this game. I feel comfortable going with that pick. BLG, where are you headed?
Well, in the same kind of spirit, stats, I'm going to take the under on the Ravens point total in this game at 16.5.
Wow.
I mean, the last time they played the Steelers, they only scored 16 points. That was a 16-14 game. Just think it's going to be kind of, an ugly, muck it up kind of classic Ravens-Steelers game. I mean, look at some of the scores in these other Ravens games here. And again, some of these were with Lamar, and it looks like he will not be back for this game. The way things are trending, as he's missed now, as we're recording this, 11 straight practices. They had, going back to November 20th, here are their point totals: 13, 27, 10, 16, 3, and 17. Like this offense is just not working right now. They're not scoring. Steelers are tough. So I'm going to take the under on that 16.5.
I've mentioned that I'm in my fantasy championship several times. I'm on the fence about playing the Steelers defense, and you guys are kind of like, I wouldn't even say pushing. You're just like dragging me into that direction. So I'll see about that. I could see this as being like a garbage timey sort of game from a statistical standpoint. Like I agree. I'm interested to see how we all sort of wind up picking this game. But Kenny Pickett, the line is 199.5 passing yards. Again, you could just kind of see like one big boom, like to get a big chunk of that. I'm going to take the over, like 200 passing yards, not a lot. And Kenny Pickett, I'm not falling for this like, oh my gosh, whoa, watch out, here he comes. But like definitely playing better as of late. I'm really interested in the Steelers overall, kind of interested to see their offseason. I'm kind of rooting for them at this point. Like I'm rooting for this Mike Tomlin thing. Like, I'm just a part of the hysteria and the fun. The Steelers are such a like cool NFL team. So I'll take Kenny Pickett over. It can be 200 passing yards for him.
Somebody has confidence in the offense in this game, and it is not me, and it is not BLG. All right, that is our same game parlay pick. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we will go through every game on the Sunday slate. We will preview it. We will make our picks as well. Back here on the SB Nation NFL show, we're going to give you our thoughts on every game unless one of us gets zapped. If that happens, we cannot share any thoughts on the game. We can only give our pick for that matchup. I hate that. Freaks me out every time. All right, let's go to the early games. The Panthers are in Tampa Bay to take on the Bucks. The Bucks are giving 3.5. Tampa, RJ, clinches the NFC South with a victory.
Quickly before we talk about the game, I don't know if you guys saw this story early Friday morning. Blaine Gabbert, Buccaneers backup quarterback, rescued people who were in like a helicopter crash on Thursday, like in the ocean. I don't know the full details here, so but apparently Blaine Gabbert is something of a hero, and I say that like not tongue in cheek, like fully serious. So seriously, incredible job and effort by him on a human level. Way to go, Blaine Gabbert. That being said, I don't know if you were looking that up, stats. You kind of had that look, but I just don't buy the Bucks. I'm sorry. Like I mean, and I will say I'm fearful of them winning the NFC South as a Cowboys fan because it's Tom Brady, blah, blah, blah. But it's just so hard to believe in them. And it does kind of feel like the Panthers are figuring things out, at least on the ground. Miss me with the like Sam Darnold's figuring it out stuff, but the ground game is all the way there. I trust the Panthers to win this game. I don't understand how Tampa could possibly be favored in this game. That is such a weird thing to me. I'll take the Panthers.
The Bucks lost to the Panthers earlier, right? This year? Correct?
They did. That was in Carolina, for what it's worth.
I don't think they're going to sweep. I know the Panthers are playing better. I will take the points. I'll take the 3.5. I think it's a field goal kind of game. Overtime, Brady helps the Bucks get a field goal, and they do end up clinching the NFC. Although I say that, but part of me feels like, isn't this going to go to Week 18 the way things are going in the NFC South? Don't you know it's going to take like every little last effort to get this division that's very bad settled? But I just don't know. I don't think they're sweeping Tom Brady. That's the thing I have a tough time with. And I know the Panthers have been playing better, but they're still, still Sam Darnold. They still have their flaws. And the Bucs might be able to shut down the run. I will take the Panthers to cover. I will take the Bucs to win.
Carolina ran for 320 yards against Detroit last week. That's the perfect way to neutralize Sam Darnold. Just run the hell out of the ball. If you can run the ball, you can beat anybody. And I'm sorry, it's Tom Brady. I know, I get it. I think I'm going to go with the Panthers here and take the points. Tom Brady should be long gone. Like, he should not be competing for a division title. They've been bad this year. So I know we keep saying it's Tom Brady, it's Sam Darnold, but this is not the same Tom Brady. I'm going to go with the Panthers, and I'm going to take the points. Next up, we're going to go to New England. The Dolphins are going to Foxborough. The Patriots are giving 2.5 points. The Dolphins can clinch a playoff spot with a win and a loss by the Jets, BLG.
I'll take the Patriots. I can't believe it's Teddy. It's Teddy Bridgewater who's starting for.
I believe Teddy is the starter.
I
Yes.
can't. No, I'm not a Teddy guy. Can't put my trust in him. Not that like I feel great about the Patriots, but as kind of a rule, I can't do it with Teddy. I think it's a different thing entirely. We saw it earlier this year. It didn't look great. I will take the Patriots. They're at home at least. The Patriots have, as I've said here, have not beaten a team with a winning record. Now that said, I think the Dolphins are kind of not looking so great and not looking like the team I thought they might be once upon a time.
Mhm.
Ooh.
I mean, they had a good start, better than expected. Anyway, I'll take the Patriots to cover and win.
There are some. It's not just like bad vibes with the Patriots. Like now there's this like Mac Jones dirty player stuff that is like everything is gross. Like everything. You ever have like a day when it's really cold outside and you have to be somewhere like and you're just like you're stuck in the cold and your face is like hard and cold and you're just like I cannot wait. Like it's just such an uncomfortable feeling. That's how the Patriots feel to me right now. I don't trust anything within the operation right now. Nothing. Like and they're losing because of like easy fundamental things right now. Like the irony of it is really funny. I don't trust the Dolphins that much, but I trust them a little bit more than I trust the Patriots. I trust Mike McDaniel. I guess if I have to pick one thing I trust Mike McDaniel. So I'm fine missing on this because I believe in the Dolphins more. I think they do wind up making the playoffs, but it is a bummer to see them kind of lose steam as the season comes to a close.
You trust Mike McDaniel. Why? He's on a 4-game losing streak at the most critical time of the year. Like, what has Mike McDaniel done to earn your trust?
I mean, I think he's built an offense that is incredibly prolific and is clearly, and I'm not trying to be the latest person to like dump on Tua, but is clearly operating with a limited quarterback, right? Like there's something to what Mike McDaniel can do. Like it just because it isn't perfect right now in year one doesn't mean that's not there. And I obviously am not at all implying that McDaniel's a better coach than Bill Belichick, but like what do you trust? Like the Patriots and Tom Brady are the same thing this year. Like we sit here and like I'm not taking a shot at you, Brandon, but it's like I can't see the Panthers sweeping Tom Brady. He's not Tom Brady this year. Like he's just some dude. You know what I mean? Like the Patriots are not the Patriots this year. They're just like some bad team. So like they've burned up the benefit of the doubt for me. I was willing to extend it a long time. I was really, really reluctant in the offseason to bag on them for the Matt Patricia stuff and all that stuff because I think that they had earned that benefit of the doubt. If anybody ever had, it's them. But like, what can you trust within the Patriots operation right now?
On that point about like they're not the Patriots anymore, I think you could say the Patriots might be like the most mid team in the NFL. Like they're just like, but seriously, in my power rankings each week, I kind of just have them almost like perfectly in the middle each time. They're right there. They're just nothing inspiring or intriguing. They're just a run of the mill,
they're who they used to be.
Just a team. Yeah, they're just a team.
And like if you're Bill Belichick, you got to find a way to beat Teddy Bridgewater in December. Or I guess January, but you know what I mean? Like, you have to, if there's any like magic left in that old silk hat, come on, now's the time, Bill. I'll take the Dolphins.
Last week was the week for that, by the way. It's past Christmas now. So.
I'll take the Dolphins just because they're getting points. I don't like anybody in this game. Nothing is going right for either one of these teams right now, but I guess I'll take the Dolphins because they're getting points. Next up, the Saints are in Philly to take on the Eagles. The Eagles are favored by 6.5 points. Philly will clinch the NFC East with a win or a Cowboys loss. And of course, if they win, they clinch the number 1 seed with it. Oh, they need to win and they need to have the Vikings lose to clinch the number 1 seed. Is that correct?
No. Just Eagles need to win.
Okay, sorry. Yep. I have bad information there. I apologize. BLG, you are Eagles expert here. What are we looking at in this game? Is Jalen Hurts going to play?
Well, stats I said earlier. I don't know. I don't know. It seems like he's really trying, but I just feel like it would be the wise thing to do to not play him when Jalen Hurts' injury recovery timeline was first reported last Monday, not this past Monday. Ahead of the Cowboys game, it was reported that he probably needs 2 weeks. You just say Cowboys lost?
The Cowboys lost for the Eagles. You said the Cowboys games. The Cowboys lost.
You said the Cowboys lost. Anyway, so like I don't know. I feel like it's the smart decision to rest him and not mess with this because he's your starting quarterback for the playoffs and you want him good for the playoffs. And I don't think you need to force it here. If he needs to come back in week 18 because the Eagles don't win this game, then you can do that. And they'll have 2 weeks off to be ready for that situation. But I just think you need to trust Gardner Minshew here. And I think they should be able to beat the Saints. The Saints have a lot of injuries going on. I do think they're going to get a good effort from New Orleans, a team that is playing for their season. They're playing for everything here. This is really their last game of any kind of consequence. So I think it's going to be a tough one. Especially if Hurts doesn't play. He was so good against the Saints each of the past 2 years. His mobility was a big challenge for them. I think both times the Eagles played the Saints in those matchups, New Orleans had like the #1 run defense, and it didn't matter at all. Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders just like ran all over them. And if Hurts isn't here, and his lack of mobility is kind of a big deal. And to the extent of which we saw a difference between Jalen Hurts and Gardner Minshew with the Eagles in Dallas, the Eagles running game was not quite as effective with Hurts not there. So that's a big deal. So assuming Minshew plays, or if it's a kind of a rusty, potentially not 100% Jalen Hurts, I think things could be a little too close for comfort, but the Eagles ultimately win in the end. So I'm taking the points, but Eagles win.
Brandon and I have always obviously talked about the Hurts thing a lot on the NFC's mixtape, and something that I've said, and I know he agrees with, is you had to make this decision a week ago. You had to tell yourself, if you're Nick Sirianni, you had to say, okay, even if we go down to Dallas and we lose, which obviously happened, we cannot panic, right? Like, or maybe it was like Hurts comes back, but whatever that decision was, don't let the loss sway you. Don't let the loss make you say, well, we weren't going to play him, but now like, oh man, we're right there. No, like, don't panic. And Gardner Minshew played really well. I think Gardner Minshew has not got enough credit. I think that's the one weirdest thing from the aftermath of last week's Philly loss that I haven't seen. Again, that's just my sort of experience on the internet, but he certainly played well enough. It was there's no loss is ideal, but if you were going to lose, that was the way to lose, to be inspired by Gardner Minshew. You have to trust him. I would even trust him to beat the Giants. I understand that would be a little bit more touch and go, obviously, next week, because it would be, all or not, but still you have to. And I hate this line, but people say it like, well, if we can't beat whatever, then we don't deserve to be there in the first place. You can't win this game with Gardner Minshew. I don't mean to say the Eagles don't deserve the 1 seed, but like, they're maybe the best roster in the NFL. Like, he has proven. I was wrong. You guys were right. Gardner's a great backup quarterback. He should be able to get this done. And so I'm taking Philly to win. I'm taking Philly to cover. It would be a lot of chaos and a lot of fun for me if they wind up losing. It would make for a really fun week next week. But I think you have to live with that. And you have to tell yourself, like Brandon just said, okay, if we lose this week, then Hurts comes back next week. You have to make these decisions before you become emotionally compromised.
Who could have predicted the guy that has like a 2-to-1 career touchdown and interception ratio would have played well off the bench last week? I'm amazed. Apparently, it was difficult for some on this show to imagine. But
you ignored Jimmy Garoppolo's stats. That's interesting.
If it's Dennis Allen, he might have something for Gardner Minshew. Dennis Allen's a good defensive coach. It might be tougher for Philly to move the ball in this game than people think. And I think that is a lot of points. Philly has some injuries. I don't know. I think I'm going to go with the Saints here just because the number is so high. Like,
you're taking the Saints to win?
No, the points. I'm going to take Saints in the points. I don't know. It's a matchup league, and the Saints do have a decent defense. I don't like the vibes with Philly right now. Like, I don't like this Hurts situation. Are you going to rest him till the playoffs? Because then he's going to have a lot of time off. And, Kyle Shanahan has made a big deal about how you can't switch football on and off. It's really hard to do. So if Hurts isn't going to play to the playoffs, then he's coming in cold. I don't know. I don't like the vibes at Philly right now. I think they'll win, but I'm going to take the Saints to cover.
I would just add, and obviously everybody knows this, but the Lane Johnson injury, like this is a really, really valuable potential win, or like this is a really big swing. It's like we talked about with the Cowboys. Like, if you go out, like you lose. Tyler Biadasz will hopefully be back for the playoffs, but like and I don't want to like speak this into existence, but like who would be the Lane Johnson of this week? Like, you know what I mean? That you would, potentially lose. And like a lot of people think like, oh, just like rest everybody. You can't. Like, you don't have 90 players on your roster. You can't do that. But if you have the game or you have the situation in hand next week, life becomes very different for you. And you do not know if you're the Eagles what the Giants situation is going to be next week. It's so unpredictable. So this is a really big swing of things. But I'm very, very interested to see this game.
If the Eagles lose this game, BLG, how nervous are you about the #1 seed?
It comes down to a must win in week 18. So it's fairly, and especially against the Giants team that, could be motivated.
Desperate, right.
So, I still like their chances of getting it. I'm probably picking them to beat the Giants, but certainly, and it's not even just about the 1 seed at that point. It's like, okay, we got it. But like, what's the outlook for the season? Like, is this team going to be, a big threat going into the playoffs, or are they kind of just barely holding on and kind of just, backsliding in?
I know we've talked about this game a lot, but Brandon and I have mentioned this a lot. Remember in 2020, the Giants themselves got so upset because the Eagles tanked in week 17 against Washington. Remember, and they were so mad that they didn't get to win the division with a 6-10 record. And different coaches, different players. Like, I hate when people act like something from 100 years ago is going to be relevant. I do wonder, even if the Giants clinched a playoff berth, if they would be like, hey, let's go for it. Like, let's ruin their 1 seed the way they took us out of the playoffs. This one's for Joe Judge. Like, let's go. I mean, and again,
I don't think anyone's saying that.
Well, no. I mean, again, I'm just like having fun with it at this point. But and again, like this doesn't mean that they would do it. But like the 2007 Giants, we all remember that week 17 game played to win against the Patriots. And that was a really great game, and they had nothing to gain and they lost. But yeah, I mean, but it was a valuable lesson for them. Like, could you not see if the Eagles lose like some sort of like speech from Amani Toomer or something like making its way around the internet, like, oh, back in 2007 we did this, blah blah blah. Like, it's just, you can kind of see it unfolding. But obviously the Eagles had to lose for it to all happen.
Yeah. Also, if you're the Giants, like, it's not like you can rest people. Like, no, you have to go full board just to even have a chance to win these games. Next up, let's go Cleveland going to DC to take on the Commanders. Washington is giving 2.5 points. Washington will clinch a playoff spot with a win and a loss by the Seahawks and the Packers. BLG, your favorite quarterback, back in the saddle, baby, Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I mean, there's a scenario where, the Commanders don't get the help. If they just win their next 2, they're in for sure. And they get the Browns this week, as we're see here, but then they get a Cowboys team that might not have anything to play for and might be resting their starters. So that could be like a free win for them to almost clinch next week if they don't do it this week. So interesting times. Could potentially be, in theory, a scenario where Carson Wentz comes to Philly, because we didn't get that this year because it was Heineke for that game. So yeah, interesting times indeed. I do not feel good about betting on Carson Wentz generally, but I feel even worse about the Browns, and who have nothing to play for, by the way. They're eliminated. Commanders are still playing for their playoff hopes here. I'm going to regret it probably, but I'll take the Commanders.
I feel identically. I don't feel great about this. I've really turned a corner on Ron Rivera. I thought the job he's done this season has been really impressive, and I don't think like he should be out or anything like, but what are you doing with this? Like, I agree that Carson Wentz has more like physical talent than Taylor Heineke, but like, everybody hates him. Like, why would you do this? Like, this is just like sabotaging your locker room. I would, I'm obviously not rooting for them, but I would be like weirdly impressed if they came out and played well. I just don't see it happening. I'm going to take them, but I'm very, very prepared to be wrong.
Heineke was not good against the 49ers last week. Carson Wentz seemed to give them at least a
Who's
little
good
bit
against
of a spark. Well, no, that is true.
Right.
I think it's clear that Washington needs to go somewhere else next year for their quarterback situation. The Browns are not very good. Deshaun Watson has not been good since he's come back. Like, he has not been good. And I know it's easy to say, like, well, next year, he was out of the game a long time. Okay, we'll see. But since Deshaun Watson came back from his suspension where he was accused of assaulting 30 different women, he has not been good. The Browns have not been good. I'll take the Commanders, and I will give the points because I will never pick the Browns to do anything ever again as long as they employ Deshaun Watson. Next up.
On that, sorry, Stats. On that note, very quickly, just talking about football, which we shouldn't, to your point that you always make, and admirably so here on our show. But like, everybody is taking turns bagging on the Broncos every week, right? Like, they gave up all this for Russell Wilson. Again, even if you just talk about football, like what the Browns gave up for Deshaun Watson and the deal they gave him, like, again, it is just a horrible football move. I mean, again, like, when you factor in everything, it becomes all the more worse. I mean, that obviously takes precedence, but like, even just the football of it is really, really, really bad for the Browns right now.
I mean, they angered a lot of fans by bringing him in, and they angered all the other owners in the NFL who now are saying, you jerks, now we have to give all of our quarterbacks fully guaranteed contracts, which, of course, is something they don't want to do. I think that's part of the reason why the Ravens haven't worked out a deal with Lamar, because he wants a fully guaranteed contract. So, yeah, Cleveland, just this whole thing stinks all the way around. Jags in Houston to take on the Texans. Texans getting 4 points. Jags, take control of the division, baby. Let's see it. Trevor Lawrence, he's kind of impressed me the past couple of weeks, I have to admit, RJ.
The Jaguars defense is the one I'm debating the Steelers up against. And it sounds easy, right? Like, oh, take them against Houston. Houston's been kind of plucky, right? Like their last few games, and like they've done this the right way. Keep losing, keep the number 1 overall pick, keep people motivated and inspired for next season. I could totally see the Texans winning this game, not in any way as an indictment against the Jaguars. Doug Peterson can come out and say all he wants about like, oh, we played a win, blah, 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 whatever. Like the Jaguars know what's at stake. The Jaguars know what happened with the Titans on Thursday Night Football. They got a home game. They have the mini bye. The Titans do. I mean, it's in the Jaguars' best interest to just be smart, not show a lot here. So I could see the Texans kind of having their fun. I will take the Texans to cover. I'm not bold enough. Actually, I'll take the Texans to win just because I think it's a weird week for the Jaguars.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate how the schedule shapes up in some of these instances where you get these like meaningless penultimate week games here. I'll take the Jags because why not? They're rolling. They're coming off Thursday night, right? There's some extra rest going in their favor. But I mean, it just doesn't matter. Okay, if they lose, whatever. It's all about week 18. It's all about the AFC South crown game at that point in them and Tennessee, where the game will be in Jacksonville. So I don't know. You know, it's just not a lot of juice factor to this game. What are we really learning? What takeaways are we having from this game afterwards, regardless of the result? Yeah.
I think I'll take the Jags and I'll give the points. I know Trevor Lawrence he's got a toe injury, right? So he's been limited in practice. But if you're the Jags, like, it's not like you've been winning 10 games every year, right? And you could just be like, we'll just lose this game. Like, no, you got to win. You got to make winning a habit if you're Jacksonville. That's, we talk about changing the culture all the time, right? Win the damn game. Great. I know next week is more meaningful, but come on, let's go, Jacksonville. Establish yourselves a little bit here. I think they will. Doug Peterson, I don't know. To me, he doesn't strike me in BLG. You correct me if I'm wrong. Do you really think he's a take your foot off the gas this week guy and then pedal to the metal next week? I think he's going to go full bore.
No, he is. I mean, he's aggressive. I do think there is something. Well, he used to play it too. So he's like a player's
His
mentality.
last game with the Eagles was punting and tanking.
I mean, that was beyond him, RJ. Come on, let's be real. Do you think Doug
I'm just
Peterson
saying,
was
like
the
he would never be
mastermind
associated with it is silly.
Like, you think he was solely to his decision when he wouldn't even be able to, see it through after that and got fired? No.
If it was the Niners stats, would you want them to play?
Yeah, play full bore. I think Kyle Shanahan has kind of convinced me on this whole thing. Like, you can't turn it on and off. Keep going.
Really just, taking the he's like your sensei, RJ. Or sorry, stats. You're just like going to the school of Kyle Shanahan.
Master Splinter.
I believe that there is something to the Jags being a younger team too, maybe in that being relevant here and kind of, keeping them like, hey, let's keep the mindset. Yeah, let's keep rolling. Let's keep winning. And then, I guess Trevor, that's maybe the one thing that could be meaningful if Trevor Lawrence plays well again and kind of keeping the confidence going for him. But that's, I just don't think it's all that meaningful if you then just blow it in week 18 and all this was for nothing. You make this run and and the Titans get in the playoffs. That would be bad.
The Colts are in Jersey to take on the Giants. The Giants are giving 5.5 points. Big Blue, RJ, can clinch a playoff spot, which is not something I thought I would be saying when the year started. But if they win, they're in.
I really hope the NFL learns their lesson as far as scheduling the Colts for primetime games late in the season, the way that they did in a bunch this year. Nothing I will ever say will ever age as well as this. Like, I love the Colts forever for making me look so smart here. They suck. They stink. They are so bad. I mean, we've asked several times, like, what can you be inspired by? What do they have? What do they have? What are they offering? What do the Colts possibly have? Meanwhile, I know they lost last week, but the Giants were really impressive last week against the Vikings. I thought Daniel Jones played. Yeah, Daniel Jones played really well. Saquon is kind of back, right? He had that little lull, kind of around Thanksgiving-ish. I mean, there's a lot to like about the Giants. And I mean, I know we just sat here and like debated like rest, blah, blah, blah. I could totally see the Giants saying, hey, like, you never know what's going to happen. And I know I just argued like maybe they would play to win next week, but like, get your ticket, rest up, and then get in the tournament. Like, they've earned that right. And so if that's how Brian Daboll wanted to play it, or if he wanted to play it all the way through, whatever. But I believe in the Giants very much. Brian Daboll kind of making his case back for Coach of the Year a little bit. I think if this win was like impressive enough, it might put him over the top. If they really like ran away with it. I feel so confident that the Colts are going to completely and totally fall apart once again.
Nick Foles has the strangest career of any NFL, like just very high highs, low lows. It is not impossible in theory that Nick Foles could come out in this game and just have like 5 touchdown passes, 0. It's like light the Giants on fire out of nowhere completely randomly because he could do that. But I don't think that's likely. I do think his struggles are real. Colts they did play on Monday. Yes.
Played on Monday night. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're coming off a short week. They're going to the Giants. Like Jeff Saturday, not aging well. How about that? Who saw the Jeff Saturday hire not being, like a really fruitful exercise at all? Yeah, Colts vibes are tremendously bad. Giants, again, RJ's kind of got into it, but like got to give them credit. Thought they were going to collapse out of this thing. It looked like, oh man, their schedule's tough. They're trending in a bad way. Saquon's banged up, but they have gotten back. They've got back on track, and I think they clinched this week. I think that's how the story of their season is going, and maybe it's a closer game. But maybe they don't cover. I mean, but like they're going to win. So I feel good about them winning.
I think that there's only 2 ways I see this game going. Either it's going to be a close game or the Giants are going to be up big. And either scenario favors New York, obviously. The Colts have been outscored 84-3 in the fourth quarter during this 5-game losing streak. I don't even know how you do that on purpose if you wanted to. But what a shock. It's not working out with Jeff Saturday. Who could have envisioned this? Oh, wait. Everyone. Literally everyone could have envisioned this. You just look at the Giants and the Colts. The Giants are so much better run right now than the circus that is happening in Indianapolis. I'll take the Giants in this one. I'll give the points. What are the Colts doing? Like, what are you doing? You want to bring Jeff Saturday back for next year? Everyone else in the AFC South is like rejoicing. Like, no, excuse me. I'll take the Giants. I'll give the points. Next up, the Broncos, speaking of circuses, are in Kansas City to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs favored by 12.5 points. We got an interim coach for the Broncos. BLG, this one seems like it's pretty easy.
I mean, I was saying before the Cowboys-Titans game on Thursday night, especially after, like Josh Dobbs was announced he was starting and everyone's going to be out for the Titans. I'm like, just bet your life savings. Again, don't take this as actual gambling advice for legal reasons, whatever I have to say as a disclaimer. But like, it's just like the Cowboys were always going to beat the Titans at that point. They just throw all the money you can on the money line. This feels like a similar situation here where, and maybe just even on the spread, honestly, because what are the Broncos? I just know I can't do it. The Broncos are just in an awful spot to get beat that bad, like they did by the Rams. That's just like, has to be. We have to rank like most pathetic losses of the season. That has to be up there. It's not just that they did, but the way they did is just, it's embarrassing and it's obscene. So I will take the Chiefs.
I do think it's interesting, like the recent barrage of tweets that have come out from Broncos players defending Russell Wilson, and like maybe that's a circumstance of like it's just too much, like they're sick of it. There was the report that Russell Wilson has his somebody correct me if I'm wrong, his own office at the Broncos headquarters and parking spaces for himself and his entourage. I don't want to butcher the details if that's not correct. And so like I've said this already, like it's reached the point where like I'm no longer comfortable like bagging on the Broncos. Like it's too much. Like I have like secondhand embarrassment for them.
Are they having like the worst season of any team?
Yes.
I mean, like just obviously like not just by record overall, because like the Texans, for example, no one's expecting them to be good. There weren't like expectations they're going to be great.
I would offer the Browns, like again when you like forecast the future, but I mean some of that is like the Browns are still like convinced that they've like accomplished something.
You also knew the suspension was coming. Like you knew it was going to be kind of a weird year. Like the Broncos, like everyone thought they could win the division. Like
I think what's really like humbled them has been. Broncos fans are a really talkative bunch, right? Like we got Russell Wilson, we're back, right? Like they have convinced themselves they're like a graduated version of the Arizona Cardinals where they don't actually have like good players in franchise history as far as quarterbacks. They've just like brought in other ones from other teams. And so like Broncos fans are like, we did it. We're here. We're competing with the Chiefs. We're competing with the Chargers. Like obviously Russ has fallen flat on his face, but I do think Nathaniel Hackett is obviously a fall guy here, but I'm very interested. Like, do they bounce back? Like, do we get the kind of post-firing bump that we often see from an NFL team? And couldn't you see, like, it would be the most, like, NFL thing of all time for the Broncos to win this game? Like, I could, like, if I'm really, really, really reaching, like, I could see them, like, talking themselves, like, getting hyped at Arrowhead. Let's just shock everybody, to hell with everybody else. And, Steven, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe Steven said before the last Broncos-Chiefs game that Kansas City was going to come out slow. They came out strong, but then struggled. I mean, kind of let Denver back in that game. So, Steven, are you concerned on behalf of the Chiefs?
No. It's before the last game. I felt like you could just see that coming because the Chiefs have this bad habit of playing down to their opponents, and then they got up 27-0, and then it just unraveled. Patrick Mahomes threw 3 interceptions and set up Broncos short fields, and they scored, and Russell Wilson had the best game of his entire season in that Chiefs game. And then the Chiefs following week, overtime against the Houston Texans. Last week, they beat the Seahawks pretty easily, but it was a super sloppy game, and their defense finally played really well. It does feel like they're turning it on a little bit, and I feel like the Chiefs really need that we're just going to run you out of the building in the first half kind of performance ahead of the playoffs. And it feels like that's the Broncos this week, because Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes both this week, when speaking to the media, were both like, they caught us sleeping. They caught us sleeping. Like we understand what we did last time, and it's not going to happen again. So I think Mahomes is really pissed off that he threw 3 interceptions against the Broncos, and he's going to come out and just light him up this week.
There's a lot there to react to. A couple things. First, with the Broncos, I think it's a little weird that it took this long for somebody to defend Russell Wilson. Like Jerry Jeudy, that's great. You want to defend your guy. Cool, good. That's meaningful to me. But what were you waiting on? Why did it take this long for you to speak up? Russ has been getting hammered all season long. So that's really, really strange to me. The vibe there, I mean, their defensive coordinator, Ejiro Evero, was asked to take the interim job, and he was like, no thanks.
Pass.
I don't want any part of this. That is just bad vibes. So I don't like what's going on with Denver. The only thing with the Chiefs, though, and this is more like a bigger picture thing, and Steven, feel free to yell at me if I'm going to say something dumb. They have the 3rd worst turnover differential in the league. They're tied for the 3rd worst. They're -5 on the year for turnovers. They do have a little bit of a too cool for school vibe sometimes. They don't lock in when they should. Now, they're good enough to overcome it, but going forward in the playoffs, when you're playing the Bills and Cincinnati and teams like that, that is the one thing that could sink this ship.
It's the turnover stuff with them is they don't have playmakers in the secondary. They've got some nice young corners who have had good moments this season, but their safeties are bad, and they don't have playmakers who go out and get interceptions and stuff like that. The best thing they can do for the defense is not turn the ball over offensively, which they didn't have any offensive turnovers last week. Prior to that, they had an offensive turnover in 11 straight games. Wow. Because they were protecting the ball that poorly. So the best thing they could do for the defense is not turn it over offensively, because the defense just doesn't force turnovers. It's just not something they do.
Here's my last take. I think the MVP award is decided as a result of this game. And by what I mean is maybe it is what Steven talked about, the run you out the building, Patrick Mahomes, some stupid, has 5 touchdowns throwing with 4 fingers or something ridiculous sort of thing. Or the Chiefs lose, right? And it's this crazy thing. And that sets up Josh Allen and Joe Burrow to take full control on Monday night.
I like that. The narrative, once again, we'll choose who wins the award. I didn't think of this myself. I apologize. I can't remember who thought of it on Twitter, but I do think that it's worth pointing out, the whole AFC West geared up this offseason. All the talent went to the AFC West because everybody was lining up to take their shot at the Chiefs, and nobody really came close. That is a credit to Kansas City, even with some of the turnovers that I talked about. They're really freaking good. I'll take the Chiefs, and I will give the 12.5 points. Bears at the Lions. Lions giving 6 points BLG. Detroit got steamrolled last week by Carolina. Are you nervous, or you think that was just sort of a one-off?
I mean, the Bears can run. That is something they run more than any other team in the NFL, so they will certainly be looking to do that. I do think the Lions loss was a little bit of this is why they're not quite there yet. Pointed in the right direction, I think, but not quite fully there. That being said, I don't think that means they're going to crumble and fall apart here. I still think I think they are going to rebound actually after a tough loss in that situation. Maybe they were smelling themselves a little bit, maybe, overconfident, whatever you want to call it. Thought it was, an easy win in Carolina. And I don't think they're going to make that same mistake 2 weeks in a row. I mean, Bears still do not have a lot going for them. And, for as much as, the running stopping the run could be a concern for the Lions. The Bears have just nothing in the way of a passing attack to really threaten the Lions, so they can probably dedicate more resources and attention to stopping that run. So I will take the Lions to win and cover. I'm not about to bet on Justin Fields.
I'll take the Lions. I'm really kind of rooting for them. I know everybody is, but I don't. As much as we kind of hyped up the AFC South earlier, I don't want the Week 18 Sunday Night Football game to be Jaguars Titans. I just don't. I wouldn't enjoy that. Like, that would feel like such a flat way to end the season. And I'm not saying this game would be epic, but I'm rooting for a Lions Packers winning in game. That's what I want. I really want to see that happen as far as the last game of the regular season. So the Lions need to win for that to happen. Although it would be very Lions to just like choke this away. Like literally after everyone bought in to just like
not everyone.
Well, okay, but literally after like the national narrative bought in to not just lose, but like piss it all away, right? Like they didn't lose to the Panthers. They got whooped by the Panthers. And so like it would be like the lines of it all would be like Justin Fields rushes for like 300 yards. You know what I mean? Yep. Like this like heroic, like record-setting performance. I'll take the Lions against some of that better judgment though.
If this game were in Chicago, I would feel confident taking the Bears. Jared Goff outside in Chicago in the winter. No. I don't like that. The fact that it's in Detroit sways me a little bit, but I do agree. Like, I could see Justin Fields just literally running wild. If there's one thing we know, if there's one thing we know he can do, we know he can run. And I'm just not there with everybody on the Lions. They keep telling me how good they are, and here we are with 2 games left to go in the season, and they've lost more games than they've won. So they'd have to be better than their record, right? Because that's what everybody keeps saying. They're better than their record. Well, guess what? Their record still stinks. So I'll take the Bears to cover. I think the Lions will win, but I think Justin Fields is going to be able to do enough to keep this within 6 points. So I'm going to thread that needle there. And then the last of the early games, Cardinals at Falcons. Falcons giving 3.5 points. I don't care about this game. I'm not even making a pick.
You have to
zap. I just don't. I'm it's a mercy zap for Brandon.
On me?
Yeah, I'm zapping you.
I mean, we couldn't do it to stats. All right. I'll take Cardinals plus 3.5.
I'll take the Falcons and I'll lay the points. Whatever.
Great. I'll take the Cardinals just to satisfy BLG. All right, let's get to the late games. The New York Football Jets in Seattle to take on the Seahawks. I talked about it a little earlier. Seahawks getting 2 points in the game. Geno Smith revenge game, RJ.
I really want to take the Jets, right? Like, I really want to like fall into the Mike White experience, but like the Mike White experience is one of those things where like everybody buys in and then there's like a flat performance and the fans of that team like cope, right? Like, well, no, it's only, you know what I mean? Like, it's just whatever. Like, this kind of has the makings of that. Like, I feel like Jets have over elevated Mike White because of how badly Zach Wilson has played. I'm going to take the Seahawks. I'll take the Seahawks. I picked the Jets in our picks pool, but I've kind of talked myself out of that. Like, Zach Wilson is really, really, really bad. But when something like that happens, people overlook the other bad things and make it all about the one main thing. So I'll take the Seahawks.
Who do you think the Jets starting quarterback is next year?
Jimmy Garoppolo.
Derek Carr.
Yeah. I mean, either one. Big upgrade from what they – I mean, Jimmy's going to start for the 49ers.
Do they win this game if Derek Carr's their quarterback? Would you pick them?
Yeah, easily.
Would you pick them if Jimmy Garoppolo's their quarterback?
Yeah, I would.
Daniel Jones?
No.
Gardner Minshew?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the Jets are kind of an interesting team in that sense. Like they're not trash. I'm not trying to say that, but they are
who, not to go Denny Green here. They are who we thought the Broncos were. They are the team that is truly a quarterback away.
Well, especially once like Breece Hall's healthy and everybody's back too, right?
Right. Yeah. So I'll take the Seahawks here. I think there is something to the Geno Smith revenge game being a real thing.
I made my pick earlier. I took the Seahawks. I'll just say this about the Jets. I agree. When you have had bad quarterback play for as long as the Jets have, and it's not just with Zach Wilson, right? Sam Darnold also. If anybody displays any glimmer of talent, there is such a desire in your fan base to pump that guy up. You know, there's a line from the movie The American President. When you've been in the desert so long and you go to the oasis and you discover that it's not really water, it's sand, you drink the sand anyway. I think the Jets fans are kind of drinking the sand anyway with Mike White. He's got 6 career starts. He has 2 of them with 3 touchdowns. but the other ones have been bad. Multiple games with no touchdowns and multiple picks. One game with 4 picks. Like, I'm not buying it with Mike White. And I think nobody would, except that it's been so bad at the quarterback spot for the Jets for so long that they're desperate.
I think it's that, and people are also desperate for the like fun story, right? Like Bailey Zappi, Ryan Fitzpatrick, right? Like the cool, funny, like that's not the mold. And that's like Fitzpatrick's not the mold that Mike White's cut from, but he is the like, fun alternative that like, maybe doesn't take himself as seriously or whatever. So it lends to people kind of trying to will it into existence.
If the Jets lose, they're eliminated, and that would make them, since it would extend their playoff drought, which started in 2011. 11
longest
years
in the league, right?
Yeah, and the next longest is the Broncos at 2016, right after the Super Bowl, obviously. But think about that. Like, that's crazy. Like, twice as much almost as the next team. It's just like it's so easy to make the playoffs, especially in today's NFL where there's 7 seeds, and the league is so cyclical in so many ways in terms of the schedule and the draft and everything. It's insane. It has to be pretty painful to just go that long without making the playoffs.
I know we're talking about the Jets, but you reminded me, Brandon, on the Broncos. I'm sure everybody saw this. The Broncos have missed the playoffs each of the 7 years following the Super Bowl 50 win. That's never happened to any Super Bowl winner ever. They are the true, like, I mean, I'm sure you've both heard the question. Would you win a Super Bowl if it meant like 10 years of like below? Like, that's what the Broncos are. Like, they're literally the team who, like, you won the Super Bowl and now you're condemned forever.
Well, how they did it too, yeah, like getting Peyton and everything. Right. That really was like, yeah.
I've always bashed John Elway for having literally no post Peyton Manning plan whatsoever when everybody knew when it was going to be his last ride. And yet there they are. That said, if I were a Broncos fan, I still would take the Super Bowl win. It's still worth it. All right, next up, Vikings, Packers. Packers giving 3.5 points. RJ, we know where you stand, so I'll start with BLG.
I think RJ is very remiss to just be like, no, the Packers just downplay. Aaron Rodgers lives rent free in RJ's head. Like, 100%. He is, like, it's just he owns really a lot of the NFC East in the playoffs. I mean, he's not just eliminated the Cowboys, but the Giants and the Commanders as well over the years, and
the Eagles on the way to winning the Super Bowl.
Yes, back then.
The only team he hasn't is the Niners. They're his daddy.
That's true, but for us in the NFC East, I cannot discount this. It feels like it's shaping up that Aaron Rodgers somehow, some way is going to sneak in, and that terrifies me. There's a reason the Packers are favored here. It's not just disrespect to the Vikings, and it's not because the Packers are awesome, because they're not. But there is Aaron Rodgers, and there's playoff on the line, and that's not something I want to bet against right now. So I will take the Packers.
It would just piss me off so much if the game where the fraud Vikings actually decided to be frauds was this game, breathing life into the Aaron Rodgers, who has not played great all year. The Packers as a team haven't played great all year. I feel like they deserve to be punished. The Packers had a bad year. They should be punished by missing the playoffs. And yet here we are with 2 games to go, and they're still not dead yet. And I know that the 49ers have owned Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs. I'm not going to lie. I don't want to see Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs.
Who does?
No.
Who wants to see him there?
So you both asked that. We had a question that we kicked around on our roundtable this week at Blogging the Boys, whether or not, and you and I kind of talked about this, Brandon, whether or not Cowboys fans want to see Aaron Rodgers sneak in as the 7th seed, right? Because the matchup in the first round would be, at least right now, these 2 teams, although it would be in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of people would pick, I mean, if we go off this point spread, Packers be favored by 0.5 point, right? I mean, if we give Minnesota a 3-point home field advantage. And so if the Packers did go on to win that game, it would be them going to Philadelphia. And there's a lot of Cowboys fans who are like, hell yeah. Send the mercenary to Philadelphia. And even if he wins, and if the Cowboys win out, lots of ifs here, then Dallas would host him in the title game. And yeah, that would be scary, but bring that on. It's a really weird thing. But Stats, you kind of talked about this. I don't put a lot of things into this kind of stuff, but Vikings, go squash this bug, right? Like, nobody respects you. Nobody has respected you all season long. Everyone's waiting for you to do the thing. Everyone's waiting for you to Charlie Brown this and let Aaron Rodgers back in. Go end it. Go be the boring end on Sunday afternoon.
I'm watching.
Sorry, go ahead, BLG. No, you got it.
I was just going to say, I'm watching this game with particular interest as a Niner fan, right? Because I want the 2 seed. Mm-hmm. So if the Vikings lose, the Niners can move into the 2 seed, but if the Vikings lose, Aaron Rodgers might get into the playoffs. So, like, in a way, the Niners can't lose this week because something good will happen either way, but also like something bad could happen either way too. So I don't know how I'm going to feel when this one's over.
Like a Packers wins maybe sets up a Packers trip to San Francisco is what you're saying in the first
right.
round.
And like, yeah, they've won against him in the past, but like he's still Aaron Rodgers. So and we still have Brock Purdy. So, it's dicey.
And you have to look at what it's against. Like it's Aaron Rodgers or Carson Wentz or Geno Smith.
Right.
Or Jared Goff.
Yeah, or Jared Goff. Like, yeah, you'll sign up for any of those guys over Aaron Rodgers.
So I don't know who I'm picking.
That's the whole point of this exercise.
I
So
know.
you're a big
I'll take the
guy, so-
Vikings.
Yeah, there you
I'll
go.
take the Vikings. Yeah.
You lay in the points too?
Well, getting the points.
The Vikings are getting.
I'm sorry. You
Taking
already
the
said that
points.
too. Yeah, because you wanted this game. You said you wanted to lock this up, but I beat you. To
Right.
it. Gotcha.
Yeah. Rams, Chargers. Chargers giving 6.5 points. It's possible Joey Bosa is back for this game. Supposedly feels better than he has in a long time. The Rams have Baker Mayfield. RJ, you taking the Chargers?
Of course I am. I'm so sick of the narrative that was spun from last week. Like the Rams put up 50 points, blah, 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 all this stuff, and all these players who are hurt. They just beat the crap out of the team that we all think sucks and is terrible. Like I hate how we can't contextualize this stuff. It was I don't mean to say it was 0% impressive. It was a fine win for the Rams. I'm genuinely interested to see what Baker Mayfield looks like in the offseason with Sean McVay. That is something that has somewhat captured my attention. But the Rams stink. Kudos to the Chargers. I'm very happy to have been proven wrong that they were able to get it together. I'm super excited to see the Chargers in the playoffs, especially with Joey Bosa. They are a team that can go to the Chiefs and Bills are fighting for the right to not host the Chargers in the first round. Like that is ripe for an upset. There will be a lot of people picking the Chargers in that game. The Chargers, I think, will very easily win the battle for LA.
I think Bosa, has the potential to be TJ Watt level impact for the Steelers, like kind of just like huge difference maker, just that one player, and not unlike Nick Bosa, the 49ers. So yeah, I'm gonna take the Chargers here. I'm back in on the Chargers, baby, in the Battle of LA. Give me the Chargers, the boats. I still don't feel amazing about them like making a run, but I do think they're gonna be a team that will give you maybe more trouble than you think they will in the playoffs. So I'm excited to see it. We did get robbed last year, and obviously some fault of their own, seeing Ben Roethlisberger in the playoffs last year instead of Justin Herbert. That was just a big waste of time, even admittedly for Ben Roethlisberger, who at the time was like, yeah, we're not going to win. So yeah, I'm excited to see the Chargers in the playoffs, and they're going to beat the Rams.
I'm going to take the Chargers and give the points in this one. I do feel like a lot of people have kind of just been waiting for like a Chiefs Bills rematch in the AFC Championship game. And sometimes you have those years. RJ, this for Niners Cowboys for years. It was like both these teams are going to be in the NFC title game. Let's just get to it and we'll see who wins then. The Chargers are the team that has the ability to wreck that, right? Because especially with Joey Bosa back, like they are the team. You do not want to play the Chargers in the opening round of the playoffs. Like hell no way. So I love that they got in. I'm fascinated to see where it goes. And if Joey Bosa can come back, that would be an incredible lift for them. I'll take the Chargers and give the points. The last late game, Niners at Raiders. The Raiders are getting 9.5 points. Derek Carr is on the bench. Chandler Jones is not going to play this game for the Raiders as well. BLG, are you giving the 9.5?
Yes.
RJ?
I almost locked this up. Like this is, I do wonder if there's and I'm curious to hear your answer, Stats. If you're like, man, I kind of hope that they have the fall apart game now, right? Like we're getting you're running out of opportunities to have the come down to earth before you start the right back up game. And so it would be funny if this was it. I don't know how much there is to the Battle of the Bay or whatever, how real that is anymore. But I feel very comfortable laying 9.5 points.
When the schedule came out, I was terrified of this game. I was like, it's New Year's Day in Vegas. It's going to be the end of the season. The Niners never have anything locked up before the end of the season. I was terrified that this was going to be a trap game for them. And now it's unless they just completely fall on their face, I don't see how they lose the game. The problem is, I agree with you, RJ, because the Niners have this game this week, then they have Arizona next week, maybe Colt McCoy in that game. If the Niners win the Super Bowl, which I'm hoping for, that would mean that they would be on a 14-game win streak in order to do it. That just doesn't happen in the NFL. You have those games where the ball doesn't bounce your way. And I don't want one of those games to be in the playoffs. So, yeah, I'm a little nervous. Like, I'm not rooting for a loss, but a loss in one of the next 2 games wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for
A
the 49ers.
recalibration. That's what you're rooting for.
Right.
A recalibration.
That said, unless they completely fall on their face, I don't know how they lose this game, even with Devontae Adams, who's going to destroy the 49ers because he always destroys the 49ers. Just the defense is not going to allow them to lose this game. So I'll take the Niners, and I will give the points. Last up, Sunday Night Football. Pittsburgh and Baltimore to take on the Ravens. Ravens giving 2.5 points, RJ.
I really like the Steelers right now. If you guys think so, I'll start the Steelers defense over the Jaguars one. I just really love the Steelers energy. It was super awesome to see them win last week and everything associated, obviously, after the unfortunate passing of Franco Harris. I think that the good times keep rolling. I mean, of course they're going to go into week 18 with Mike Tomlin's streak up for grabs. Like, of course, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. They need like a billion different things, but I think that they will absolutely. And I would normally bag on a team that celebrated something like that. But if the Steelers do wind up, keeping the streak alive and missing the playoffs, that is a huge thing for them. Like, I think you can legitimately build off of that moving into next season.
Yeah, I'll take the Steelers outright. Ravens offense just isn't scoring. There's just something to the Steelers where you just trust in Tomlin to figure out a way to get it done. I mean, at the same time, John Harbaugh, also a very good coach. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's very interesting how the Lamar contract negotiation, which reportedly they're like restarting talks with him or whatever, which is like a weirdly timed report to me here, was such the dominant story leading into this season, arguably like one of the biggest ones. And it's just, I think it's interesting how it's kind of been on the back burner since then. And I know he hasn't been playing, but it's 2 years in a row now where like he hasn't been available towards like the end of the season or getting hurt. It's tough. I've said it multiple times here. I'll repeat myself again. It's just, I don't understand how this path precedes the Lamar contract. Like, are they really going to give him an extension after like this? I mean, if he gets back healthy and they go on a run in the playoffs, then absolutely makes a ton of sense. But if it goes on a whimper like this and they finish the season in a weak way, and then he plays in the playoffs and he doesn't really play great in his first game and they lose, and then you're going to sign him to this big unprecedented extension, that's really going to happen? RJ, what are your thoughts on that? Zap, doesn't matter.
Okay.
All right, Stats, what are your thoughts on that?
I already picked the game.
I think that I agree, BLG. Like, if it kind of ends on a whimper, like, there's no reason. Don't offer him the big contract. Just franchise him.
Yeah.
Like, that's set up for these teams to be able to do this for a reason. The franchise favors the organization. I continue to say it. I know that players initially liked it, but it's definitely favoring the organization.
The
franchise
tough part
him.
about that is that, like, okay, you tag him, you bring yourself that little bit more time, I guess. But at the end of that, then what are you going to do? Are you going to tag him again?
Franchise him again.
Unclear?
Yep.
Well, I think it might reach a point where, like, if you either believe in him or you don't. So, like, make a decision. Either extend him and get that benefit, or decide it's time to move on. And you're the Ravens, and you can figure out things in the draft. What are you trying to say, RJ?
I was just going to say, you're betting against yourself at a certain point. Like, I know I was that, but like that was our argument against the Cowboys throughout the Dak thing, was like, okay, say he proves you wrong, then you're literally costing yourself more money, right? Like, which is what happened to the Cowboys. Like, like the Carson Wentz deal blew up in the face of the Eagles, but like it costed them less than if they had waited.
For a Zap.
I'm just saying, the team is betting against themselves, which is stupid.
But
I just think they have to make a call at some point. Yeah.
Yes, I agree, RJ. The ultimate extension is more money, but what you're paying for is flexibility. The franchise tag gives you flexibility. Plus, I don't rule out the fact that you put the tag on Lamar. I think that somebody may make you a trade offer that you accept. Like, because teams around the league know, right? Something is weird between the Ravens and Lamar. We may be able to scoop this guy up. Like you said, BLG, like, clearly the belief is not locked in 100% there. So if you're Baltimore, to me, the tag makes a lot of sense. You get flexibility, and you may get your doors blown off with a first round, with a couple first round picks.
What about like Seattle? They have those picks from Denver.
Seattle has the picks. I mean, the multiple teams, the Eagles, not that the Eagles would do it. Although
we had talked about that a year ago, though. Before Hurts exploded, there was the question of like, hey, if he doesn't have the great season, like, you're in a position to maybe pull off that kind of trade if it doesn't work out with Lamar. Isn't Lamar from Miami? Am I making this up? I can't recall. But either way, like, wouldn't he be so much fun in Mike McDaniel's offense with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek? Like, that would just be like the coolest thing of all time.
He's from Florida. I
just think if you're the Ravens, it makes too much sense not to franchise him. That said, oh man, I can't take Baltimore in this one. Their offense is it's anemic. It's pathetic. It's infuriating, really. I'm not a Greg Roman
Jeez.
fan. I will always have
The Ravens beat the 49ers in the Super Bowl 10 years ago, just so we're all aware.
I will always have anger at Greg Roman, who called the 4 worst plays of the season in that Super Bowl at the end of the game. So yeah, that's where I stand on that. Monday Night Football is a massive game, which we can't analyze because that's not what we do on this show.
Nah, we need more than one sentence stats. This is the only game of the week with 2 teams that have records above 500. We can't ignore it.
Bills, Bengals. Bengals are getting a point. Buffalo clinches the number 1 seed in the AFC with a win and a Chiefs loss. Cincinnati clinches the AFC North with a win and a Ravens loss. BLG.
I don't like betting against Joe Burrow. Josh Allen's great, but I think we've all talked about it. There's a level of like erraticness there.
Self-destruct.
Yeah, and with Joe Burrow, I think he's like a killer, and I am afraid. He's one of the quarterbacks I'm most afraid of, and there's something to the Bengals that they rise to the challenge, and I think that's in large part because of him leading the way. I'll take the Bengals here. I mean, it's basically a pick 'em with the point, but I feel very confident in Joe Burrow. It's not even an indictment on the Bills so much as I really don't want to bet against him.
It really pains me to agree entirely with that because I really like Josh Allen. I really like the Bills, but I do think the underdog narrative that has surrounded. They've won the AFC East 3 years in a row. They're no longer an underdog, right? We don't have to act like, oh, the Bills have come from nowhere here. The time, where is it? That's kind of where I'm at. And you made a face when we talked about it, or when I mentioned it earlier, Brandon. Josh Allen almost threw that game away in Chicago last week for the Bills. He is not above that. I've referenced this a lot lately, but when they blew that 17-point lead to the Vikings, he had a horrible interception in the 4th quarter. He threw the game-losing interception in overtime. I mean, people just conveniently look past that when it comes to Josh Allen. He makes a number of heroic plays, but I agree. I do think that Joe Burrow is a little bit more calm and cool under pressure. I love Stephon Diggs, but I think Jamar Chase is just a hair better. The Bengals are just these ruthless, stone-cold assassins. I do think the Bills are these big bad mafia members, but I will take the Bengals. And and like I said, especially if the Chiefs lose, this game is a fork in the road for MVP, especially to your point, Stats. If the Bills do clinch the 1 seed because of a Chiefs loss and Josh Allen does have this big performance, it's boom, Monday Night Football, penultimate week. You did it. MVP, Bills Mafia, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I think that's totally legit. Josh Allen will always have just a little Russell Westbrook kind of to his game where on any particular play, he could do the greatest thing you've ever seen or the worst thing you've ever seen. And as somebody that's totally impartial, it doesn't root for the Bills, I love it. Give me more of those guys. I kind of like watching, but the Niners get a lot of love because they're on an 8-game win streak, and rightfully so. Cincinnati's won 7 in a row. That's almost as good, obviously.
They were 0-2. They were buried. People always bury 0-2 teams.
I love the whole Joe Burrow, even last year when they were going through this, how he was stop calling us an underdog. Joe Burrow is I don't love this word, but he's a killer. That's the only way that I could think of to describe him. I think that Cincinnati is going to get it done. I like that it's at home. With the Bills, I don't know. You get so many bites at the apple, and if you don't get it done, eventually you fall off. And Bills fans know this, having reached 4 straight Super Bowls. And I know that we all kind of preordained it, but Cincinnati's really, really good. They're hot at the right time of year. I'll take Cincinnati, especially because I'm getting a point.
Stats, you mentioned earlier about the Chargers. Sorry, Brandon, real quick. The Chargers are the team that could ruin the template we've been rooting for. Joe Burrow is the kind of person that's oh, you guys wanted a Bills Chiefs AFC Championship game? Sorry. You know what I mean? He is and I loved it because the underdog story is cool, but that's the Bills thing, right? We're the underdogs, Bills, smashing tables, whatever. I love how Joe Burrow's no, we're not. I know this team has had a horrible history as far as its franchise is concerned, but not when I'm here. I love that he's respect us. He will force people to respect him.
And while Joe Burrow and the offense get all the attention and love as they deserve a lot of credit for, I feel like the defense, Bengals defense, kind of finds a way sometimes. And Lou Anarumo, it's this guy came out of nowhere. I feel like, at least as far as coordinators go, kind of didn't have any kind of hot shot trajectory. And I feel like he kind of get results, especially in these big games. It seems like he goes into them and then it's this Bengals defense has a chance to actually help out Joe Burrow and not get totally annihilated. So I think that's kind of like an underrated factor in it all.
It's worth mentioning they almost blew a 22-point lead last week, and then they were down, and that they were down 17 points to the Bucks 2 weeks ago. So to your point, Stats, like this does feel like both teams have like an erratic gear. So like this could be like an all-timer sort of game, and that's I think what we want, obviously, first and foremost.
I think that the difference is like with Buffalo, you certainly know that Josh Allen is capable of coming back and righting the ship and all that. Joe Burrow, when I think of him, like I think of the dude sitting back after kicking everybody's butt with a cigar. Like there's a confidence there with Joe Burrow, like that no matter what happens, this guy can pull it out. It's going to be, I love it. This game is on Monday night, last game of the week. It's going to be so much fun to watch.
ESPN crawled through a lot of mud to get to this game.
They Shawshanked it, right? They crawled through a river of crap and came out clean on the other side. All right. That's going to do it for this edition of the show. Please continue, rate, review, follow the SB Nation NFL show. We love your reviews. As you heard BLG at the start of the program, if you leave it, we will read it. For Steven Serta, RJ Ochoa, Brandon Lee Gowton, I'm Rob Stats Guerrera. We'll talk to you next week.